landlords, and welcome back to our What's What Wednesday. If you're new here, my name is Michaela. I post all things property management every Wednesday and every Friday. So tying in still with our theme of tenant applications for August, I wanted to actually talk about today's what, which is going to be, what is an acceptable credit score? So I get this question quite a lot. You know, everybody wants to know, hey, what is an acceptable? What's a decent credit score? And the answer to this, like everything else in property management, it depends. It depends on your property and the location. So if you have a really, I guess, more rundown studio apartment in the not so good area of town or the city, it would be pointless for you to ask for applicants with a 700 credit score, just because you would know that in that area a 700 credit score probably isn't the norm or the ideal. So, and that also depends on now more on the higher end. If you were to have a 4,000 square foot house in a really, really nice neighborhood by a school or whatever, and now there you could probably get away with asking for a 700 credit score. Now, I've seen different property managers, I've seen different companies do different things. I know a few of them have a tiered system to where there is a basic, where there's a minimum requirement and there is a basic requirement, and it's basically for those people who may not meet that 700 credit score, but they make, 4 times the rent, but their credit's not exactly at 700. Let's say it's at 670. So they try to mitigate that risk with the lower credit score by having a higher deposit. Now remember, whenever you are setting a screening criteria, you need to make sure as a self-managing landlord that you are consistent every single time. Tying back into last week's video, remember there are 18 fair housing classes in just the state of California alone. If you have your screening criteria be anything but objective, if there's any sense of subjectivity in there, you are definitely putting yourself at risk. It's not going to be in your favor at all. So make sure that whatever you are doing to screen your applicants, you need to make sure that you're consistent every time. So I know this is a little bit more difficult for my self-managing landlords to do themselves, but just consider this. I would do the research in your area, the city, the county that you're in. Consider, what is the general population like? Is it more, blue collar executives who live there with families, are very well off, or are you more in the urban, a little bit more rundown parts of your city or county to where, there's a lot more poverty, there's a lot more people not making as much money, their credit isn't the greatest. You really need to know your demographic. So once you do your research on your own for your own demographic, you'll understand what is the best way to create an acceptable credit score for the location that your property is in, as well as for the property itself. I'm sorry, but if you have a rundown property that's really not that greatly taken care of and it's not in a good location, you are going to be sitting on the market for a very long time waiting for an applicant with a 700 credit score. So be reasonable. Yes, you want to place a quality tenant in your property. However, you want to always make sure that you're being consistent and you're being objective with what you're checking for when placing these applicants in your property or when you're screening your applicants. Let me just give you an example. Applicant A applies to your property. Your requirement is a 650 credit score and making 3 times the rent. Applicant A applies. They have a 635 credit score and make 3 times the rent, but you can't move in until next month. And now you have applicant B who has a 649 credit score and makes 4 times the rent and can move in this weekend. Which one are you going to choose? Well, let me tell you here. If you choose applicant B, but your requirements are that you have a 650 credit score and it says nothing else in your screening requirements, then tenant A then applicant A can say one of 18 protected classes in California and say, you didn't rent to me because fill in one of the protected classes. You didn't rent to me because I have a disability. You didn't rent to me because of my race, because of my religion, because I'm not a citizen, because what I do for work, so on and so forth. So when they try to take you to court to sue you, or because they're upset you didn't rent to them, if you don't have a consistent basis and if you don't have that written screening criteria that is completely objective, that you follow every single time, a judge is going to look at you and wanting to see every other application that you've had, and if they've all had a 650 or above, and the one time that you decided to rent to somebody else because it seemed better for you, well, guess what? That is a subjective reason as to why you decided to move them in. Landlords, please just be careful. And to wrap up in just a quick summary, an acceptable credit score is always going to depend on the property's location and the type of property it is. So go ahead and research the area, the location that your rental property is at, research that demographic, see what the trends are, and then I would go ahead and set your screening criteria accordingly to make sure that you're remaining completely objective, and so that way too you are making sure that you're putting the best quality tenant in your property. All right, landlords, remember, if you have any other questions regarding that, tenant applications in general, setting a screening criteria, or you just have something that is just opposite of those but deals with property management, please feel free to go ahead and drop that question in the comments so I can shout you out in one of our videos. Or if you would not like a shout out on our video but you want me to answer your question, go ahead and click on the link below, or you can contact me with all of my contact information will be below, so you can contact me on any one of those platforms as well. Remember guys, we post videos every What's What Wednesday and FAQ Friday. If you're new here, I would love for you to hit subscribe and that little notification bell so you never miss out on anything property management. All right, landlords, my name's Michaela, providing you with a higher standard in property management. Bye, landlords.